Hey everybody, Kemo Sabi here, giving an update, kind of drawing inspiration from many sources on this, namely Camel Finance, Bob Loukas, FiboSwanny, and some Sawcruhteez in there as well. Kind of listen to these analysts uh, with a lot of respect on their views and trying to piece it all together along with kind of the wave structures that I look at and trying to paint a picture. Um, Definitely doesn't have to play out, but speculation has for some good things coming on the Bitcoin chart as far as price action and potential trade setups that should be um, very good, up and down. So I guess to start things off, just to be simple, which direction are we looking at? The direction on the weekly is up. So you have your highs, your higher low, higher high, higher low. Now you're painting higher high closes here. So the trend is up on the weekly and will remain so as long as price doesn't close weekly candles below 78,000. Um, this could be a very, very bullish structure. According to Wyckoff method, you would have a potential reaccumulation formation here where you had a spring phase. This would be your show of strength, and now holding in the strong area of the consolidation. So if price is to continue its momentum upwards in a bull market suggested by the weekly candle closes, higher highs and higher lows, that's kind of the direction that we want to look in. And I'm going to start off by taking a parallel channel from the 49,000 lows and bring it across our current lows and just bring it all the way to the top here. I'm not sure which peak to use. Let's use the highest high just to be conservative. And let's start prognosticating. So if the weekly chart is up, potentially back in 2024 you had this as a reaccumulation. This could be your show of strength on the weekly. This is a backup phase that back tested after a jump across the creek. This is your backup phase, back testing the previous area of resistance as support, and it kind of got front ran a little bit. So I wouldn't be opposed to price coming back down there, but if you want to buy a bullish asset, you want it to stay bullish and stay strong. So this is an area to say, hey, this is strong and it's going to continue moving up. While if price does retrace back to the trend line, that would be, still bullish, not as bullish as holding strength. If an asset is going to remain strong, it'll stay strong. It'll be very, very strong, and it won't give you those pullbacks that you want. So I'm suggesting that potentially this is all you're going to get. I don't necessarily like the way this came down in three waves there, kind of as per Elliott wave. It kind of leads to potentially more dropping down, which if you get stopped out, you get stopped out. But if this pattern is as bullish as I'm thinking it is, we're about to have the weekly cycle low and double as per Camel Finance. Camel has been suggesting that we have a weekly cycle low and double. We have a weekly cycle low and double, and maybe another weekly cycle low and double. So I'm looking at what would that end up looking like if we do indeed have that. You may be having this parallel channel may give you your markup phase as per Wyckoff, where this ends up being like an ABC, targeting somewhere around 148,000. That would give you from the lows of 74,000, that'll give you your double. So you have your weekly cycle low, potentially a double. Then price could potentially come back down, mimicking the leg that we had over here. This is just the way that I look at things. Everything is three waves. Everything is, markup in a channel. But if that leg is to repeat, this is the timing window for the weekly cycle low that would be upcoming, and you would still be making higher highs and higher lows. And out of there, we could have another weekly cycle low and double. And we may be repeating this leg here. Then do the same thing from here, weekly cycle low, finding support at our current area of previous resistances, finding support there to then push up for, well, it should mimic that yellow leg. That's why I'm matching the colors. So it should be of equal distance and kind of equal time, which would put you at 220,000 per Bitcoin sometime early 2026 is kind of what I'm suggesting. That being the pattern that I'd be looking at as a very nice markup channel and an overthrow to complete that pattern. So shout out to Camel Finance and his Camel indicator that picks the weekly cycle lows and even the daily cycle low. I have it set to the weekly cycle lows as I'm still in trial phase of this, but it would line up very nicely that everything is very symmetrical and it's still in a markup channel. And if price does end up getting to that $144,000 to $155,000 area, and you have a pullback all the way back to 100K, that's a $50,000 drop. And in percentage terms, it would be just the same as that previous leg that we had from January till March. So we could have, 2 months of downside, something like that, to mimic that leg, giving the pullback, backtesting support, or backtesting resistance as support before we get another push up into maybe the end of the year, but it could spill over into the early portions of 2026. And my man FiboSwanny was looking at similar targets somewhere towards the end of the year, and he's been very accurate in long-term predictions of price action based upon the metrics he looks at. He called for these peaks. He called for this 109 area to be hit at a specific time. I don't know how he does it, but he's definitely worth a follow with his threshold theory and how he operates. So I will leave a link in the description of this video for FiboSwanny's video. It's on X. It's actually on TradingView, but he's got a link to it on X, and it's a great video and worth a watch. But that's in alignment with like kind of what I'm looking at here. My path of getting there is a little different than you're probably seeing out there, as I don't count really Elliott waves anymore. I count symmetry and what price action kind of looks like to me. Now this is all in log scale, so it's all percentage based moves, but they match and they're very symmetrical, and it maintains the trend very well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, putting all the pieces together here. And it also kind of plays in with the anomaly video, that the pattern that I found that's kind of picking tops and bottoms and projecting, like bottoms are predicting tops and tops are predicting bottoms. So check out that video as well. That says that this likely is going to continue up for a while, which brings me into Bob Loukas' video where he was talking about this cycle may not look like your normal cycle. It may bleed over into the next cycle. And from what I'm gathering from Camel Finance, he's suggesting that the next cycle should be left translated. And if we get price action that mimics this cycle, to my understanding, we may end up repeating this sideways chop up here into a 4-year cycle low that actually finds support at 150,000 or somewhere thereabouts. And it would be long and drawn out and choppy. Like this was like 8 months of sideways action. And if this leg, this symmetrical leg, pops up like that, completing the pattern sometime in February, this would bring you to roughly September, October of 2026 for your 4-year cycle low. And if that plays out, I would expect a repeat of this entire leg from that 150 area, 150,000 sometime, let's call it November 2026. And this repeats into sometime in 2027, maybe all the way to the end of 2027. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But this kind of gets you price targets upwards of 700,000, and it would be in the next cycle that would kind of be bleeding in from this cycle. Now, how to count that in Elliott wave, I wouldn't know. I probably count it as like a 1, 2, all of this would probably be 3. There's your 4, and there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of some sort, leading you to a 5th wave that completes way up there. So that would be a symmetrical pattern for me, and it would get to targets that, yeah, I'm kind of expecting that. My original target was 333,000, but if price wants to keep going, I'll let it keep going. This makes sense with the cycles and the symmetry, and makes sense with what Bob Loukas was talking about, having potentially a smaller retracement into the 4-year cycle low coming in 2026, and then shooting out of there to have a real blow off. But it's just mimicking what this did over here. I think from current area, this whole pattern playing out is contingent upon a lot of things, and we're talking years into the future to project patterns, and normally they don't play out exactly like that. I would say potentially you have a pattern here. This is your halfway point, and this pattern completes right there, 200,000. This is your cycle complete, and from there you could come all the way back down to 30, 42,000, 38,000. But if this price does hold this area for, a period of, 6 to 8 months of sideways chop, you buy your 4-year cycle low, manage the risk appropriately, and ride that thing up into some weird blow off top, going higher than most would expect. So bring it back to basics. Just watch for this channel. Whenever this channel, like if it does play out, you'll have your inexpensive at the bottom and your expensive areas at the top of the channel. And that's generally the way that Wyckoff markup happens. So if price does end up getting to 150, don't be surprised if it comes back down to at least the midpoint of the channel, or even back to the bottom of the channel to retest previous quote-unquote resistance as support. As that happens pretty often in this current cycle up, this price action came back down and retested that resistance as support. This price action over here, you had a spike up, a low, a breakout, came back tested that previous area before taking off. So it's not uncommon for Bitcoin to come back down and retest its previous resistances, coming deeper and being more confusing than most would expect. And I think that's the kind of the paradigm of this cycle, is expect the unexpected. I think a lot are expecting a peak similar to what we had before. We want, parabolic bull runs going up. And I think the expectation of that happening again, I think there's a lot are just waiting for that to happen. I don't think many are waiting for the price to just continuously grind up in some weird fashion all the way till 2027, which I think leads to, it's a possibility that nobody's looking at. I think everybody's waiting for a very large drawdown to be able to buy back in at a cycle low. I think what would throw everybody off is not having that super pullback to very, very low prices. like I was saying earlier with regards to price being strong, if price is going to be strong, let it be strong. Let it keep, showing strength. And all of those ideas are valid as long as your weekly trend is up. Keep trading it up. You don't, as soon as it closes a weekly close lower low, then be cautious, which you did this here. This was a weekly close lower low, but it's still higher than these lows. So locally, it was trying to put in a downtrend, but now you have a higher high close. So trend resumes back up, even locally, and the swing is still to the upside. So don't get caught up by previous psychology of the market. If you think about, I don't know how many bull runs you've been in on Bitcoin, but after the 2017 run, all we heard about all through this area, what do you think the end of the year price is going to be? They were always talking about how high it's going to go. How high is it going to go? 2021, same deal. How high is it going to go? What do you think the end of the year price is going to be? However, in this entire cycle, more than ever before, the questions that I've been getting is, where's the top? Where's the top? Where's the top? I think previous cycles, people weren't as concerned with tops or picking the top. If a market's going to top, let it top. But I think previously people were looking where, how far is this going to go? And now they're like, where's this thing going to top? Kind of looking for a top when it just keeps going up. Whereas this, people were looking for further price action as it topped. And now you have this very large drawdown, and this whole ride up, many market participants, they had post-traumatic stress disorder from this downtrend. So they're like, well, I don't want to wear that big downtrend all the way down. And myself included, I definitely don't want to wear that downtrend. But if price is making higher highs and higher lows, then you stick with the trend until it ends. And that goes even for this previous area. You're making higher high, higher low, higher high. This should have been your higher low, and you get stopped out. So that's where you get stopped out. When your higher lows fail, you made a lower low, and now this downtrend prevailed. But overall, like on the monthly, you're still making higher highs and higher lows. If you zoom out, still higher highs and higher lows. It's still a strong chart. So if it's going to be strong, let it be strong. Keep following it. And you want to buy strength. You don't have to be too concerned with the day-to-day price action. Intraday, this thing can whip back and forth quite a bit. Currently, you do have a daily lower low, lower high, lower low. This can be where your lower high comes in. You do have this leg down is complete, so what's going on here, it could be mimicking what happened here. If that's the case, then this breakout can very much lead to prices of 144 to 155,000, just going a standard ABC breakout. I think many would look at this as a bull flag, and maybe they're hesitant, saying, well, this isn't going to play out all the way up to there. You go to 120, 128,000, which is a valid target for sure. I think Elliott Wave would say you've completed a wave 4, and you would target a wave 5 extension somewhere around 125,000 being the 618 extension. So that would be my first target for sure. But if price holds up there for, say, 5 days to a week and breaks out again, I'd be looking at 147, 148, maybe all the way up to 164 if it wants to get crazy. Can price come down here and break below here? It sure can. So that's why you manage the risk. We do have a mid-cycle low coming up around the 5th of January, or 5th of July, 4th or 5th of July. We do have non-farms payroll coming up later on this week, so that could be where liquidity is taken before pushing up. And maybe expect a short squeeze over the weekend, because that tends to be what happens. You get a large push up where the CME traders get trapped, and then as soon as price closes on Sunday up above the range, any CME traders that are stuck in these short positions, they'll start closing, giving you fuel to the upside. So that's something to watch for sure. So that's putting the pieces of the puzzle together for me. So shout out to Camel Finance, Bob Loukas, and my man FiboSwanny. Check the link in the description for his video, and check that out as well. He's got some good fibs that he's pulling. So that's it for tonight. Keep them stops tight.